Who knew that a platformer made entirely out of textile materials could be so charming? Well, Nintendo found out when they released Kirby's Epic Yarn for the Wii in 2010, and they decided to textile up another of their mascot platformers with Yoshi's Woolly World on Wii U in 2015. Now, the Wii U wasn't short of 2D platformers, especially when you consider the console's ability to play Wii games, so it is a little odd that Nintendo decided to bank on Good Feel, the developer behind Kirby's Material Adventure, making a Yoshi game in a similar style. While Kirby's Epic Yarn was a unique take on Kirby with little to no Kirby mechanics, Yoshi's Woolly World is a sequel to Yoshi's Island mechanically. This makes the decision to make this a spiritual follow-up to Epic Yarn a little more odd than usual, doubly so when you take Nintendo's treatment of Yoshi's Island over the years into account, where they were making more and more expanded remakes of the game rather than proper sequels. What benefit does the Woollen appearance bestow upon our lovable dinosaur dragon thing? Is it a worthwhile venture? Or is this just a strange, bizarre cop-out of a release to give the Wii U a retail title in 2015? The story in Yoshi's Woolly World is about as in-depth as you can get for a Yoshi's Island game. Magic Koopa has barged into the Yoshi's lives on Craft Island and decided to mess up the place. He casts his signature magical shenanigans and it causes all the Yoshis to unravel into spools of yarn. Which is horrific considering the Yoshis are made out of yarn themselves, effectively tearing the poor things apart. Thankfully, your Player 1 and Player 2 Yoshis have survived this magical savage act of magical brutality because you were a bunch of scrubs and tripped into the wool nest in the middle of the island. After you hop out and see that Magic Koopa has stolen all the wool in a sack, you both heroically panic and leap onto a sack and tug until some of the wool comes loose. He kicks you off his bag and conveniently flies over stages, dropping the wool into them. It is then up to these courageous cowards to save the day and their Yoshi brethren. It's hilariously simple, only a tad higher up on the complexity scale than the new Super Mario Bros. Games, and that is only because there's a line or two of dialogue each time Magic Koopa is on screen. It is less of a story than Kirby's Epic Yarn did, oddly enough, but it is enough to get started, though not much more than that. As previously mentioned, this game is only a follow-up to Epic Yarn in appearance. The actual gameplay is that of Yoshi's Island. What this means is that you'll be meandering from left to right or up and all around as a lumbering Yoshi with all the abilities Yoshi had in prior Yoshi games. He can run, he can jump, he can eat some enemies and turn them into eggs that he can throw. The only difference from Yoshi's Island is that Yoshi is not carrying a whiny baby as a health meter and has to collect jumping hearts to increase his health, as opposed to the jumping hearts to increase Baby Mario's timer in Yoshi's Island. That being said, you'll jump around with the A button, shoot out Yoshi's tongue with the B button, ready eggs be fired with the X button, and generally just try to make your way to the exit. It's all simple stuff, really. The egg thing is probably Yoshi's biggest difference to other platformers, offering more to the challenge or the design, other than simple get to the exit, jump on the enemies to win from other platformers Nintendo has on their belts. Yoshi's eggs, or wool balls as they are here, are projectiles and are used not only to deal damage to enemies, but interact with the environment. Now this interaction is quite limited, being only used to hit enemies, hit outlines of objects in the world, or to hit the winged question mark clouds, but it is enough to make it stand out, that is, until you come across a hidden winged question mark cloud with no eggs around. To replenish Yoshi's eggs, you can do one of three things. Eat enemies as mentioned before, find a really underused plant that spits eggs out, and a box that pops eggs out when smacked. All of these methods are in prior games, but what isn't broken you shouldn't fix, and they let you prepare for whatever the specific spot of a stage wants you to be ready for. You can arm yourself with up to 6 eggs at a time, and can technically get a secret 7th egg because you can use enemies as weaker, less accurate projectiles in a pinch. Now, for some of the things the game wants you to do, I find this egg limit quite, well, limiting. Thankfully, this isn't something that's going to matter 90% of the time, as the game is only really challenging in any manner when trying to get the collectibles, but the egg limit is part of the reason for that. Still, the eggs are what makes Yoshi Yoshi, and they remain a fun mechanic here. There's also Poochie, who is introduced in Yoshi's story, who you can ride on throughout the stage. He is only naturally in like 2 stages, but can be added to more stages with the use of badges. I am not sure the point of this, as Poochie's entire mechanic is he runs in the direction you're facing, even if standing on him, and jumps really high when reaching a wall. The couple of times he is with you, naturally, he is used to solve puzzles, as he can grab items Yoshi can't reach, as he is smaller than Yoshi and can walk on spikes and such. I am not sure what value he would have in other stages, but it is disappointing he is so underutilized, as he could have added some variety to the game. While Mario and Donkey Kong zip and zoom through their stages, only stopping to collect power-ups or collectibles, Yoshi likes to stroll through his levels and take in the sights. What that means is levels are slower in pace than most platformers and require patience. Not out of challenge, but just regular old waiting around patience. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, it's just different and more mellow than other platformers you might be used to. Yoshi has more control with his jumping thanks to his flutter jump, which has been seriously buffed since his last games, as he doesn't lose any height if done correctly, making slower platforming more satisfying thanks to the increase in precision. Yoshi can also bounce off enemies for more height, though this isn't used extensively, only here and there. Another thing that makes Yoshi much slower is the higher abundance of maze-like stages compared to the others, well, Mario at least, as Donkey Kong is a linear affair. Taking a page out of Mario's Ghost House stages from Mario World and the new Super Mario games, Yoshi's Woolly World is home to some non-linear stages of its own. Unlike the Ghost House stages, which just have you trying to find the correct way through, the maze stages in Yoshi's Woolly World have you exploring the area, finding things you need to progress, like hitting switches or winged question mark clouds to cause platforms to appear, or finding keys. There are not that many of them, but they do stand out, and one of the reasons is because they make finding all the collectibles kinda a nightmare. There are also some bonus room-like areas that see Yoshi transforming into a vehicle or something else to proceed in the stage. These are reminiscent of the bubbles that transform Yoshi in Yoshi's Island, but they are infinitely more guided and limited than they were in that game. You might see Yoshi turn to a digging machine, you might see Yoshi turn to an umbrella, you might even see Yoshi turn to a motorbike. They add some variety here and there, but they are severely underutilized in the main game, making it easy to forget that they were there at all. Kirby's Epic Yarn had these as well, but with how that game worked, they fit a lot more, as Yoshi isn't constantly turning into things here. But hey, it was a thing in the old game, so it gets a pass. Speaking of the collectibles, in this game there are several. Each stage has the same amount of them, much like other Nintendo platformers, and they can be trickier to find thanks to the addition of the hidden winged question mark clouds, which appear when Yoshi touches the spot they are hiding in. These collectibles are gems, stamps, jumping hearts, flowers, and wool spools, and they are all hidden throughout the stages. Each stage has countless gems, 20 stamps, a little more than 20 hearts, 5 flowers, and 5 wool spools, and collecting them all on a stage gives you a star on that stage. The gems count as currency to buy badges before a stage, effectively cheats, and the hearts are your health, as explained before. Ending a stage with 20 hearts is required to get 100% in that particular stage, which is why there are more than 20 hearts a level, and hearts can be found from wing clouds or by passing through checkpoints scattered about the level. Each hit Yoshi takes depletes 5 hearts, and each cloud containing them gives 5 hearts, so it can be tricky to make it to the end with maxed out health, as all it takes is a single stray hit to ruin your run. Stamps are the most useless of the collectibles, as all they do is give you Miiverse stamps, something you can't utilize anymore, and are hidden amongst gems you find in this stage. Get all the gems you see and you'll more than likely find all the stamps, though this does get harder coming on the end. That brings us to the 2 most important collectibles, the Smile Flowers and the Wool Spools. These are the 2 most important as they actually unlock things you can use. The Smile Flowers unlocking new stages and the Wool Spools unlocking more Yoshis to play as. If you collect all 5 Smile Flowers on all 8 stages in a world, you'll unlock that world's secret stage, which has its own Smile Flowers and Wool Spools to collect. These stages are more difficult than the regular ones, so they are worth unlocking if you want to do it all, or if you want to test yourself against what the game thinks is difficult. The other thing that Smile Flowers do is add a bonus point to the goal roulette at the end of the stage. At the end of every stage, you jump through a hoop that doubles as a roulette. If the roulette stops on a flower, which is only there if you collected the attributing flower in the stage, you'll enter a bonus game which has you doing various things to collect fruit, potentially as a callback to Yoshi's story. The more fruit you collect, the more points you earn, and the more points you earn, the more gems you are awarded with. Considering gems are just used for cheating with badges, as there are no lives in this game, they're kinda useless unless you really want to make the game easier. As for the Yoshis, it does what it says in the Woollen tin. It unlocks different skins for you to play as. Since they are all yarn, they don't fit in any real pattern, being whatever the designers want to make, and frankly, most of them are pretty garish and unappealing. There are some really cool ones and some cute looking ones, but most are ugly and just too showy without having anything much going for it. Still, it's worth unlocking them to see if it's one you'll want to use or not, and the wool on the stage reflects colors used for the final product, so it is interesting to see what the colors you are collecting are going to turn into when you complete the stage. As per Nintendo tradition, a tradition that Donkey Kong ignores, each world is also home to two bosses, a mini-boss and the world boss. These bosses are fun at times and frustrating at others. Fun because it is fun to figure out the boss's patterns, and frustrating because you get one shot to hit it before you have to wait out its attacks again. This is usually just a problem with the mid-bosses, as the world bosses are a bit more clear. This is the case because the mid-boss is just a larger, regular enemy and is reused later in the game, but the world boss is actually unique with its own visual and its own attacks. They are still fun overall. The largest frustration comes in when you actually die during one of them, as checkpoints are not always right outside the boss door. Still, they are a million times better than the new Super Mario Bros. Bosses and are easier than the Donkey Kong bosses, while still being fun and unique to fight compared to the rest of the game. Sadly, while the game does a lot right, it fumbles itself in the fact that it's both fairly easy, outside getting all the collectibles, and the game sort of wears out its welcome. What I mean by this last part is that, unlike Mario or Donkey Kong, the stages are longer than Yoshi's meager movement speed would have you believe. It's almost as if Goodfield took the length of a Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze stage and had you walk the whole time. This might not seem like a big deal, but when there are 6 worlds with 8 stages each, it really starts to drag on, especially with some of the things it gets you to do in the later parts of the game. It's not a big deal if you play in bite-sized portions, but it's one that'll easily wear on you if you play for any length of time. I had to limit myself to around 2 or 3 stages at a time about halfway through, just a little samey as the game progresses. I think it goes without saying that the game is absolutely gorgeous. Like Kirby's epic yarn before it, Yoshi's Woolly World is made out of realistic materials, only this time they get the HD treatment so the materials look better than ever. I don't know if I have to say much else as you've been staring at this entire review, but the cute, fuzzy look to the game is just as charming as it was before. The stages are made out of materials and the world map is clearly a homemade world in the middle of a room, complete with a dresser. It brings back memories of making things with random objects and clothes around the house as a child, and they nailed the feeling they were going for even more than Kirby did. Though it does stand out more in a weird way considering the game itself is just a Yoshi's Island game, making it feel artificial, but not in a way the game probably wants. Kirby's epic yarn was fake, the world was fake, the characters were fake, it was a weird world Kirby found himself in. Here, it just so happens that this is the way Yoshi's World is. It's just odd and stands out in a weird way when you think about it. Of course, this is just nitpicking as the visuals are cute, the animations are cute, Yoshi's mannerisms are cute, and the music is fun, mellow listening. Looking at it and listening to it is just as much of a calming experience as playing it. One last thing to talk about, and that is Mellow Mode. Mellow Mode joins the pantheon for let's make this game as easy as possible things that Nintendo's implemented in their games of late, much like the Power Wing in Mario Bros. U or the Super Guide and other such games of theirs. It gives Yoshi wings and makes his flutter jump stronger by making it near automatic. All you have to do now is hold jump and you'll float indefinitely and lose no height. You also start with maxed health, 20 hearts, and double hearts drop. Now this is fine, as they want everyone to be able to play the game, but this one is more insulting than ever, as the game isn't overly difficult and you can play this right from the beginning. In the other games with modes like this, you needed to die so many times on a stage before it was unlocked. Here, you can do it right out the gate. Though it does also slow down the egg cursor, which I feel the devs thought would make things easier, but instead it can make things harder, as the cursor always starts at the bottom and has to travel up, making it take an eternity to be able to hit something above you. Not much to really say about it, but it's kinda a bad sign that an easy game needs an easy mode. All in all, Yoshi's Woolly World is an enjoyable game, even now. One of the biggest reasons is because no other game plays like Yoshi games, and there are so few of them that aren't remakes. The yarn visuals remain striking and only gotten more beautiful in HD, and the music is fun and bubbly. The slow, plodding gameplay isn't for everyone because it really is slow at times, but it makes for a more engaging experience when the levels are designed more around it and not just traditional platforming. The bosses are fun challenges and the variety of stages is great, though they could do more to increase the variety in general for the game, as the transforming rooms were too few and far between. Regardless, this is a great platformer for a console that is filled to the brim with them. It's no classic, but if you are in the mood for a chill and mellow platformer, you can do so much worse in this fun time. This chill mood just made me slip Yoshi a very strong 8 out of 10. Just make sure you ignore the badges or mellow mode, or the game might just play itself.